Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be going over the books that I read for the last week of March. This is week number 4. When I'm filming this, there is one more day. Obviously, I'm filming this on Easter Sunday, so that'll hit next week. So it's not my full month wrap up because I am in the middle of a couple books. But this is basically week number 4 in March. So these are the books that I read between the 24th and the 30th. I read 11 books, which was really good for me. I think I had a really great productive week. So let's just go ahead and get right to it so this isn't too long of a wrap up. All right, let's dive into my weekly reads. Okay, so the first book that I read, I was very excited about this because I've read this series by Webster. I got the couple arcs for book 3 and book 4. The other ones were not available on Kindle Unlimited, but she just added them recently, like this month. So I went back and I'm reading books 1 and 2. You'll see the second one a little bit later. But the first book was Teacher of Nothing. This is the first book in the Shameful Secrets series. And of course, it's a teacher-student romance. This is another taboo series for Webster. I do think that this one is a lot lighter and not as kinky and crazy like taboo like other Webster books. So I think if you just want a little touch of taboo, some fun stuff, I think this is a good series to check out. This is between Callum and Willa. And Callum is a park, and they kind of are a big deal in this town. His father, I believe, is a really important lawyer. He's got his hands in a lot of different places. They're a very powerful family. Callum is a teacher, much to his father's irritation. But Callum does not have a good relationship with his father because when he was in high school, he basically found out that his high school girlfriend had been having an affair with his dad. That already is bad enough for the relationship, but his dad ends up marrying her. They have kids. They have like twins together, and the parks all live on like the same like street together too. So he constantly has to go to Sunday dinners and all this stuff. So he's a very angry, bitter man towards his father. So you can see where that would kind of be difficult for him and hard for him. He has basically been really obsessed and into one of his students, Willa. She is 18, so just be aware she is of age, even though it is in high school. And he's really trying to fight his attraction to her. She's very quiet and shy. She tries not to be noticed. She does live with her stepbrother. She has a horrible stepfather. Her stepbrother is disgusting and constantly making advances on her. And she thinks she can kind of handle it, but her home life isn't good. Her father, the stepdad, kind of beats her mom and is very mean and shady. And so she's not in the best situation. One day, the stepbrother kind of took things too far, and he was showing these friends these pictures in Callum's class, and they were of Willa while she was asleep, and he was touching her boob and taking pictures of her while she wasn't aware. And Callum loses it, and they all go to the principal's office, and he kind of sees that they're not really, her mom didn't even show up because her mom's kind of checked out on prescription pills and just not in a good place. And so he's seeing that Willa has nobody there for her. So eventually the one thing leads to another. They start kind of flirting, and he doesn't control himself one time, and they start kissing, and so he can't stay away from her. There's a lot of sneaking around. He ends up sneaking in her bedroom at night. She has to put one of her dressers up against her door so her stepbrother doesn't get into her room, even if she locks it. So she does not have a good situation going. But of course, it's a student-teacher thing. Plus, Callum's brother Hugo is running for attorney general, and so he can't have the family have any scandal. But, you know, Willa's kind of in this dangerous home life situation and Callum is in love with her. So it was a good, spicy, taboo little romance, adding some suspense and shit going on with the stepbrother and everything like that. So I really enjoyed this one. Honestly, like, I gave it 5 stars. It's not like the best teacher-student romance I read, but I really enjoyed it, and I really like this Parks family. So I gave this one 5 stars, and then it was 3.5 chilies. It was spicy. It's K. Webster. I do gotta say that one of my favorite things is praise, and Callum was really bringing the praise in this book, and I loved it. Okay. So the next book I read was A Fair Catch by Kandi Steiner. I read Blindside a long time ago and I loved it. I never read the first book. So this is the first book, and I actually just bought, like, I used one of my credits on like this 4-pack you can get on Audible. It's like 1 credit for 4 books. So it's like the full series of 4 books all in one audiobook. So I just basically used a credit for that. And so now I can finally listen to Fair Catch. So I ended up getting that on audiobook, and it is the first book in the Red Zone Rivals series. This is between Zeke and Riley. This is like a brother's best friend, kind of enemies to lovers. Really, it's one-sided. Riley is like hating on Zeke for this accident that happened with her brother, where he's, you know, in a wheelchair and he's no longer able to be like the kicker and part of the football team. And she blames Zeke for that for reasons. So now that she's actually the kicker for the football team, she ended up being able to do that and for the college team. And so she kind of has to fight being like a female kicker and all that. There's a lot of pressure. So she does have, you know, if you can get in your head and have issues. But there's also an issue because she has to room with one of the guys and she doesn't get her own place like they had originally thought. So she ends up being Zeke's roommate. Zeke has been really trying to mend things with her for a long time, but she's just been like, won't hear it. And, you know, they start to get like closer and there's like, you know, they have instant like lust thing going on. He actually has dyslexia, so he's kind of struggles in school and has to work really hard at things. And I can tell you, like, this heroine, I did not like her. She was not supportive. Like, she even, like, maybe she didn't know about this dyslexia, but she, like, put down his brain and his school, how bad he is at school, not realizing like what he actually has to go through to, you know, just do something that somebody else would have got done a lot easier. He works extra hard at it. So they do end up coming to an agreement too, where like he's like, I can help you with your kicking and getting out of your head, and like I just need you to help me with school a little bit. So and then eventually they kind of have a sexual relationship start. My problem with this book was the heroine. She was such a freaking bitch. She was horrible to Zeke. She was like very standoffish. She like, he would be so, you know, put his heart out there, and he told her everything that happened with the accident. And it's like, she just, I don't know. I did not like her. She, and then the third act conflict, I feel like she was so ridiculous and made me hate her even more. And Zeke was like amazing. He was like supportive to her, helping her through everything, being like a sounding board. And then the instant something bad happens, she literally kind of doesn't even trust him and blames him. And I don't know. I just didn't like her. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I didn't like it that much. Zeke was the best thing about this, and he had to do a groveling at the end, which he did not need to do the groveling. She needed to grovel for her behavior, I felt like. So she wasn't really that likable compared to, like, I loved both the characters in Blindside. I'm planning on listening to that one and doing a reread in April. So anyways, 3 stars, 2.5 chilies, and, you know, it is what it is. It didn't work for me. And talking about prickly heroines that you don't like, This is another heroine that didn't work for me. So the next book that I read was The Goal by Elle Kennedy. And this is the 4th book in the Off-Campus series, and it was a disappointment. I was so bummed out with this book. It took me way longer to read it than it should have. I was just struggling. And like the first 3 books were all 5 stars for me. I loved them. This one didn't really work. So this is between Tucker and Sabrina, and this is a surprise pregnancy going on here. Again, the problems with this book all center around the heroine. So in this, Tucker is one of the hockey players. He's one of the friends of the main group of guys. He lives in that same house. And in the previous book, you knew he was kind of like never around. So this book takes us back. So in the previous book too, The Score, which I loved, there's a really tragic thing that happens at near the end of that book, and so we kind of have to backtrack in this one, and we're covering that same tragic thing again, which kind of bummed me out because it made me sad in the last book. But we're finally seeing what Tucker has been up to because he was like never around. He basically hit it off with Sabrina. They end up having kind of like a one-night stand in his truck outside of a bar. She has a crazy life. She lives with her like stepdad who's screwing her grandma. I don't know how that happens. And it's like she's very poor. She has to travel every day from where she lives. She's not like on campus in a good situation like them. And she's trying to go to law school. I believe she's trying to get into Harvard. And so she's working like 3 jobs, taking a heavy load of schoolwork. So she really doesn't have time for anything. So she kind of hooks up with Tucker and is really into him and attracted to him, but she just doesn't have the time. Tucker tries to kind of pursue her, but she's very standoffish and she doesn't want relationships or anything like that. So they end up having like a couple hookups, you know, and, you know, Tucker is amazing. Like, he's book boyfriend material. He is the patience of a saint. Like, he dealt with so much with her. But what ends up happening is she does get pregnant, and now she doesn't know what to do. Like, she doesn't really want to, like, have an abortion or get rid of the baby. She doesn't want to give it up. So she does end up deciding to keep it. The good thing is she does tell him. I think he kind of guessed because they were together and she was like really sick and he was taking care of her as she was sick. And he was like, I think you're pregnant. And so that's kind of why, who knows, she might not have even told him if he didn't guess and go out and buy her that pregnancy test right away. I just don't think she's that good of a person. I don't like her. So then he wants to be there. He wants to be like the stand-up guy. He cares about her. He wants to help out with the baby. And she just is all about like, I don't want him to be like, feel trapped. I don't want him to feel like he needs to be with me because of the baby. Like, so she basically pushes him away this entire book. When Tucker is proving to her that it's not ruining his life to have this child. He wants to help her. She won't accept help. He's trying to be there for her. And she just constantly has this wall up and pushes him away. And it's infuriating. This guy is so patient. He deals with so much with her. And she's fucking brutal. I couldn't handle her. Like, seriously, there's a point when they have, like, the baby. And, like, in the morning, the next day, like, he's looking at her and he's like, I love you, you know. And she doesn't say anything back. And she's like, oh, well, he's just feeling that way because of the baby. Like, he full on tells you he loves you. He, like, turns his life around, buys a business, has a thing above that business for them to stay, and so she could live with him because he doesn't want her in that bad environment. And she still won't admit or say that she loves him and wants to be in a relationship with him. So I was infuriated for most of this book, especially, like, we don't even get to her admitting to him anything till literally the very end. So it's freaking brutal. Sorry, but I was upset. So I decided to give this 3 stars. It's probably a 2-star, but because Tucker was so amazing, I had to give it that 3 stars. So it's 3 stars, 3 chilies, and trigger warning is just, you know, that tragic event. So I don't even want to bring it up. So it could give things away if you haven't read the score either. So I don't know. I was bummed. I'm still trying to, I'll finish the series, I think, in April. So hopefully the last book will be better. Okay, so the next book that I read was the Madest Obsession. I don't know why I put off reading this book for so long. I read the first book. It's in the Maid series, like a couple years ago, I think, and I liked it. And I never continued with the series. That's what I do. So I made that one of my goals this year, was to finally finish this series. That's kind of one of my multiple goals, is to try and finish some series I'm in the middle of. So this is the second book in the Maid series. I actually did buy this on Audible because I think it was like on sale at the time. So, and I loved the audiobook. It was really well done. It was like dual narration and I really enjoyed it. So this is about Christian and Gianna. And Gianna is a mafia princess that's been forced into like a couple marriages. Both their husbands have died. It hasn't been a great experience. The first one she tried to like have a real relationship with and was like in love with him. And he ended up cheating on her with her best friend. And then he ends up dying in like a shootout. So then later she gets handed off to like a super old mafia dude. And so like she just is kind of jaded. She kind of uses drugs, coke, or parties, and just kind of wild. Christian is actually an FBI agent, but he's a dirty FBI agent, and he has ties with their family, with the mafia family and everything. And they've kind of been circling each other for years. It's like, it kind of flashes back to like way back, and then you'll see little things that how long the interactions have been going on with them. They have crazy banter, but like he has been basically obsessed with Gianna for years, you know, but he wants to be with her, but he can't be with her because he has ties to certain things in Russia. So he kind of was like hiding his accent, but like one time when they were like getting heated with each other, it kind of slipped out. And so she was like, wait, what? You know? And so he has a lot of secrets in his past that he's kind of hiding, and his own motives and everything like that. But they have insane chemistry. I can tell you, I was like feeling the angst and like the sexual chemistry and how much they just like couldn't deny their attraction. Like I felt it. And I really loved their dynamic. I mean, their banter, the sexy times. And then you bring in Christian. Christian is like the most possessive, obsessive kind of man. And he is a literal touch her and you die. Like he will freaking shoot a guy in the head for disrespecting her. Not even touching her, disrespecting her. I freaking loved it. I loved Christian so much. And then especially once he would be saying his phrases in Russian, and the audiobook, the narrator did such a great job. It was so hot. So I loved this one. It was so much better than the first one. So I'm mad at myself that I didn't continue with the series way back. So I ended up giving this 5 stars, and it's 3 chilies. Trigger warnings is only a lot of like the violence and stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. There are more trigger warnings. Okay. So there is a lot of trigger warnings actually in this. So we have child abuse. There's child molestation, previous SA, drug use, and then domestic abuse. And then obviously a lot of violence. That's what you're going to get in a mafia romance, but I highly recommend it. You wouldn't even need to read the first one if you just want to read this one. The first one was good. I think I gave it like 4 stars, but this one was so good. Okay, so then I went back to the K. Webster Shameful Secrets series, and I read The Tangle of Awful. This is book number 2, and this was a wild ride. So this is kind of like a poly menage relationship, but it's between Aubrey and her stepdad and her stepbrother. So it does have it's a little bit more taboo than the first book because the dad and brother are related and they do share her. They do not do anything together, but there is some kind of like touching that ends up happening during sex. So just be aware. So this is a crazy one. Basically Aubrey was so Hugo is the father, and he was married to Aubrey's mother. They're still married, but the mother has been like missing for like a year or something, I think it is. Aubrey had actually moved away a couple years ago to live with her dad because her and her mom had like a falling out, and kind of shit went down with her stepbrother Spencer. So she's been gone for a couple years, and now she's returned because her dad kicked her out because she got a little crazy in LA and was getting very promiscuous. She like slept with his boss who's married, and now the boss wants to be with her, and she was getting into some shady stuff. She definitely does come off a little slutty in the book, but it's mostly her like need for love and attention. She's got a lot of daddy issues basically. So now she's back. And Spencer does not want her there. He's like hateful. So Spencer brings like the bully and the enemies to lovers kind of feel to this book. He thinks she's after his family or is going to be a bad thing for his family. And you get to know why he feels that way. But like a couple years ago, she had kissed him and they kissed and they shared a moment. She was like in love with him. And then he immediately churned and started bullying her and making her life hell. And that's part of the reason she left. So, but now that she's back, Spencer's pissed because he doesn't like her, but can't stop wanting her. And then Hugo, the father, all of a sudden sees this drop dead gorgeous woman with like these sexy tattoos on her legs. And he's like totally lusting after her, but also wanting to take care of her. So while Spencer brings the bully, angry vibes, Hugo brings like the caring, love, praising, everything she really needs too. So they both start kind of individually having things with her, but they kind of know about what's going on with the other. And then eventually it's kind of like when they do end up like she wants to be with them, she does not want to just be with one of them. She wants both of them. And at first they're kind of like jealous, like they're mine, but they realize they have to share Aubrey. Now, while all this is going on, we also have a weird stalker after Aubrey. And we don't know who it is, if it's tied to, because Hugo is currently running for the, to be I forget, I just lost it. The Attorney General. So like he's trying to find his wife because he needs her back he wants a divorce, but he also needs to find her for his, campaign and everything like that. So there's a whole mystery about what's going on with her mom and all this stuff. So I did really enjoy this. This is spicy AF. There's so much going on in this. I did think the third act was a little over the top. There's all these crazy reveals, and it was a little extra and kind of like so unbelievable, which, I mean, this kind of situation already is. But I think that's kind of what K. Webster was going for. So I still gave it 5 stars because I enjoyed it. And I hadn't read one like this, so I thought it did really well. Just a warning, there is DVP in this. So though they don't have full sword crossings, they are going in together. And so things do touch. So just be aware of that. It's taboo. So just some trigger warnings. There is grooming in here, child SA, attempted SA, and violence. So I gave this 5 stars and 5 chilies because there's lots of sex. There's lots of sharing. There's lots of tabooness going on here. And I had a great time. Okay, so I quickly read a audiobook. I listened to an audiobook. It's on Audible Plus. This is So That Got Weird. This was narrated by Teddy Hamilton, so that was amazing as always. But this is by Amelia Kingston. I've never read this author before. And I'm trying to read more new authors. So this is kind of like your typical over-the-top awkward girl that's actually hot but doesn't think she's hot. And she's a virgin and she needs to get rid of her virginity, but she doesn't know how to talk to guys. So she ends up going on this site, and looking up, like, like girls have rated guys and stuff. And there's one guy on there that I think he was the quarterback. He's a star football player of the team, and he's really rated highly. So this awkward girl actually approaches him and offers him like $5,000 because he's like working, he's on scholarship, to basically kind of like teach her. So it's a teaching me, and seduction and all that kind of stuff. And so at first he's not okay with it, but he loses his job. He really needs the money. So they slowly start like hanging out, doing foreplay, all that kind of stuff, which eventually will lead to the sex. And I thought it was okay. It was a decent book, but like they kind of like their characters a little bit drastically change in the end. She's so awkward and doesn't know how to talk to a guy. By the end, she's like going off on people, like, I don't know. It just came up a little weird. So it was okay, but I think it's that tired trope of like the awkward girl and the football player, or the jock. So I ended up giving that 3.5 stars and 2 chilies. Okay, so then I continued with this kind of alien novella series that I got into. I read the first 2 books and they were okay. They were decent. And then I went on to The Alien's Lover. This is by Zoe Draven. This is the 3rd book in the Warriors of Luxuria series. And I liked the first 2 books, but this one was so much better. So I'm really glad that I continued with this series. And the first 2 books follow the same couple. And so now we have a new couple. And I think that was kind of like what we needed. And it feels like a good, like it's really setting up the series now. So in this book, we're continuing where the previous book, they basically were attacked by one of their enemies where all the women couldn't, like, it killed a lot of women, and then they were also unable to have babies anymore. So the previous 2 books was the leader, Voxa. He had gone to these pits to compete. It's like kind of like a gladiator thing, and whoever wins gets to take home a woman. But these women are human women that are basically kidnapped and brought there against their will, and then they're given up like that. So Voxa realized how effed up this is from his woman. And so he decides to send a group of his men to go rescue these human women from these pits and bring them back, and they can send them back to their planet. So in with this, we have Levon, and he's one of the people. He's like his second in command. He's very powerful. He's smart. And he goes and he does this rescue mission. And as he's rescuing them, this one alien was about to rape one of the human women because she was getting feisty, and that's Beck's. And he immediately recognizes her as his fated mate, and he does not know what to do about it. He is a virgin hero. He's never even had like the pleasure mates that they do. He hasn't done any of that. And he is insanely attracted to her. She's really attracted to him. So when he gets all those humans out, they're on their way back to the planet, but they end up getting found by that big enemy, and their ship was way outmanned. So basically he was going to give himself up so they could hold him as leverage or collateral and let them get the woman back safely. Trouble kind of goes down where Bex ends up with him. They end up able to escape, but they are basically sent to like this dangerous planet. So now they're stuck on this dangerous planet together. They kind of find this isolated cave, and it's like that forced proximity of them being in the cave for days together and kind of trying to survive and try and fight their attraction. Now, I loved Bex because she fully like comes onto him and is like really into it. And he keeps trying to have to stop it because he's like, if I mate you, you are not going home. Like, so I can't mate with you because you're going to be going home. And if they lose their mate, it's really devastating for them. So it was such a sweet, like, getting to know each other. There's a lot of like danger on that planet. So it's very exciting. and just their like slow build to like be together was so cute and hot and sexy. I love like an alien romance. It reminded me of Ice Planet Barbarians, where they're in those caves together and like just doing the day-to-day surviving. I don't know why, but I love that. So I absolutely love this one. I give this one 5 stars. And then it was 3 chilies. So I'm definitely going to continue with the series because I think they're getting a little bit better as they go too. Okay, so I'm going to go through these next few pretty quickly. I basically was working around the house all day and I found the Heaven and Hell series, most of them on Audible Plus. So I ended up, and they're like really quick ones. So I ended up getting them all on Audible Plus, and at least 3 of them, and I listened to them all in one day, basically. So the first one is like a 50-page novella. There's really not a lot to say about it. It's Heaven, and this is by Darcy Rose. And this Heaven and Hell series is actually centered around this sex club called Purgatory. They have like the Heaven section, which is up above, and then the Hell section, which is down below, where like anything goes. So I actually did read a San Mariano book set in this world, Descent, and that one is crazy. But anyways. So in this one, this is between Dean and Eve, and they are step-siblings. Eve has been obsessed with him forever. He comes back home, kind of disses her, even though he finds her attractive. And so she decides to give up her virginity to somebody at this, like, sex club. And, you know, and they're in pitch dark where they're not speaking. And then lo and behold, the stepbrother is the one that comes in. He realizes it's her. They have sex. He decides, I want to keep her. Mine. There you go. It really was just like over so fast with my audiobook. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to rate. It really didn't have anything to it. It was just the smut. So, but I gave it 3 stars and 3 chilies. So then I went on to Hell, and this is by C. Hallman and J.L. Beck. And this is between Lucian and Rowan. Lucian is actually the owner of the Purgatory Sex Club. So he's a pretty morally gray, crazy kind of character. Rowan kind of got tricked into getting, like, you know, this kind of loan of money that she wasn't able to pay back. And now she's got to pay back her debt to this owner, you know, by coming to the club and working for him. So she's going to come there for the night, but she doesn't realize really what she's getting herself into, because it's going to be for one of their clients in the Hell section down below. And that's one where it's like, you can do anything you want. There's depraved stuff going down on there. It's not just simple kinks, and it's not consensual all the time. So she has to go down there, and this guy like wants to like cut her up, and like he's really into pain. But this club owner felt like he couldn't get her out of his head, and he didn't want that to happen to her, so he stops it. And he tells her, okay, you can have 4 interactions with me. You have to wait around for them to happen. We're going to have different sexual interactions 4 times, and then your debt is paid. And so they start this very sexual kind of relationship. She is kind of like on the run, hiding from her ex-boyfriend who is very abusive. And so she's kind of trying to deal with that. I was okay with this. I was enjoying it about 70% through. And then the 3rd interaction I did not like. It was a threesome. And I didn't mind the threesome and the sharing because I'm okay with that. But she did not want it. She felt horrible about it. And you're in her head and she's like freaking out and feels dirty and like used. And so that didn't make me feel so good. Then the 4th interaction happened, and they had discussed like a safe word. And she's like, you'll stop if I ever use a safe word, right? And he promised her he would. And lo and behold, when they do this 4th interaction, he does not stop with a safe word. And that's where I was pissed. Because like that's such an irresponsible view of like BDSM and those kind of dom sub kind of dynamics, and to not be trustful and like to stop at a safe word is just no, that is not okay. And so she was devastated, and so then he has to grovel, which he barely groveled, people. So this book just didn't really work for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars because it was still interesting. It's just that last half was not good. And it was really like, where did the love come from? They literally only had sex with each other. So it's just fully sex smut. If you want some good spicy stuff, there's a lot in this. So I ended up giving this 3 stars, and it is 5 chilies. Okay, so then I listened to Hitman, and this is by C. Hallman, and this was much better than the other 2. This is basically between a hitman for like the mafia, and there's this girl, Monroe, that works at that purgatory club. He sees her there, and he's very interested in her. He thinks she's very hot, and he wants her. And so he kind of like offers her money like at the club. She never takes the money. She's a virgin, but she really needs it because she's basically paying for her grandmother to stay in her home, and like in an old folks home. And it's like all her money goes to that. So she ends up actually giving him a blowjob so that she could get that money. And he basically becomes obsessed and stalks her, sneaks into her house and watches her sleep, jerks off, comes on her face, you know, that type of stuff. Then one day she actually gets attacked by a couple guys, and he kills them in front of her. So he's like, well, I can't let you go because you're going to tell people about me and my ties to the mafia. And so it basically turns into a captor-captive. He takes her back home with him, chains her to the bed. And so, I mean, he really just wanted to keep her, but so they get into some interesting stuff. His kink is somnophilia, so if you don't like that, you may want to skip this one because it's heavily a part of this. I usually don't love it, but I didn't mind the way it was handled in this, and I did think that they actually had more of a relationship and a build than the other books. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and it is 5 chilies. There's a lot of spice in these ones. Okay. So the last one that I read was a novella, and this is The Four Leaf by Jacquot. I never know if I'm saying her name right. But I discovered her at the novella readathon, and I realized that she writes such amazing novellas because she manages to give you a backstory for each of the characters. You get to see their like real chemistry and their connection, and like you actually believe it. She does mutual pining like so well. And in this one, you have basically friends to lovers, childhood friends to lovers. We have Samantha and Adrian, and they kind of run this hotel. He's not a part of it anymore. He plays professional rugby, but she's basically been in love with him since they were kids. She tried to like kiss him at one point when they were kids, and he basically kind of snubbed her, and she just felt friend zoned. So, you know, she's just kind of stayed back from that. But in reality, he's been pining after her for years. So he ends up coming back at St. Patrick's Day, and they are kind of like tiptoeing around this. They have a lot of banter, and you could tell they both want it, but they're just scared to like make that step. And Adrian is also scared because he's really into primal play, and he doesn't know if she would be okay with that. But she's okay with it, you guys. So I love primal play. I loved how it was done in this book. It was so sweet and sexy, and you could just feel how much these two really loved each other and were pining for each other for years. So I really loved it. I gave this one 5 stars and 3.5 chilies. You gotta love the primal play. So those are all the books that I read this week. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel, like, and comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these or if you've tried that Heaven and Hell series. I don't know if I want to continue if these books are worth it because they were kind of crazy. But it was a good week overall. I will see you guys next week with my next wrap up. Have a great day.